Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to another live stream. Lar from Complete Test Success here. Today we are looking at Academic IELTS Writing Task 1. I have a message here from Aman. Hi Aman, you're doing general training IELTS. So thank you for coming. Thanks for joining. But in reality, if you're doing general training IELTS, you're not going to benefit from this lesson in that, you probably have a lot of things that you need to do, and looking at lessons based on task 1 academic is not going to benefit you. So, if you need to work on your grammar or if you need to work on your vocab, spending an hour doing that will actually benefit you more than this lesson, because obviously, task 1 in general training and task 1 in academic is very different. They're completely different. Excuse me. So thank you for joining me, but I would still encourage you to, use your time as wisely as possible and work on some problems that you're having, or work on some things that will actually help improve your score. Okay, so as I said, today we're doing task 1, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a question with you, just like we do in all of these live streams. I'm going to share a question with you. I'm going to get you to write the different parts of the essay. And as you're writing them, you share them with me in the comments. I'll give you feedback. I'll tell you what mistakes you're making. And then once you know what mistakes you're making, you can avoid those mistakes. You can, work on your weaknesses, and that will help you to improve your scores. So that's basically what we're doing. You're going to share your writing with me, and I'm going to give you feedback. Hi, Hatun. Welcome to the lesson. I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Waking up a little bit slowly this morning, if I'm being honest. It's taken me a while to fully wake up. Okay, so here is the question for today. The first thing that I want you to do is I want you to write the paraphrase for me. So most of you will know what that is, but just in case, for those of you who are not sure, what we're looking to do is take this bit of the question at the top. So it says the graph below shows the number of appliances sold in an electronic store in Ghana from 1965 to 2000. So we want to take that and we want to rewrite it in our own words. The most common mistake that I see in the paraphrase is that the meaning has changed and it doesn't have the same meaning. That's not suitable. It has to have the same meaning. And another very common problem is that students try to use none of the words from the questions, and it's incredibly difficult to do that. You will need to copy some words. So for example, the word appliances, it's quite a specific type of electric device. So, it's most likely that just using that word is going to be more accurate than finding some other word to use. So sometimes you'll need to copy words from the question. That's no problem if you do. Raisa, hello to you. Sir, maps and line graph table, we have to use different vocabulary and different connectors. There will be some different vocabulary for sure. Some of the connectors will be the same. But definitely, yeah, you'll need to learn language for the different question types if you don't already know them. Farhad, hello. Good to see you here again. Mandeep, hello to you. Nasir, hi, sir. It's good to have live for task 1. Great. Good to hear it. Wing Me, hi to you. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys get on with it. Write the paraphrase, share it with me in the comments. I will give you feedback, and I'll also take one of your paraphrases, add it to the screen, and we'll continue and write the essay together. Hi, Manpreet. Hi, Nambut. Good to see you all here, guys. Hi, Probir. Welcome. While you guys are writing your paraphrase, let me share a link with you as well. So on Wednesdays, I have free live feedback lessons on Zoom for my subscribers, for my email subscribers. So you'll see that link there. You'll also find that link in the video description. So you just register there, and then you'll have access to my schedule for these live feedback lessons. So basically there's a schedule, you'll see the times and the dates, you'll see the topics, and also the Zoom link that you need to click on to join those lessons. So you'll find that there. So for those of you who want more support, just click on those links and you can join those lessons for free. Okay, Hatun has the first paraphrase. The line chart depicts the figure of appliances sold in Ghana for electronic store between 1965 and 2000. So you've got the main information there. So essentially, you've done what you need to do, but also there are quite a few grammar mistakes. So let me just grab that and I'll make some corrections. For those of you who haven't shared your paraphrase with me yet, just continue writing and share it with me when you're ready. But we'll just take a closer look at Hatun's paraphrase here, because I want to write an essay on the screen as we're going through this lesson as well. Okay, the line graph. I'm after taking the wrong one, apologies. Okay, so we wouldn't say this line graph, we're always going to say the line graph. The line chart, the line graph. Typically we'd say line graph, it's a stronger collocation. Depicts the figures for, and just spelling mistakes there, appliance. The figures for appliances sold in Ghana, but it's not that they're sold in Ghana. It's not all of Ghana. It's an electric store in Ghana. Appliances sold in an electronic store in Ghana. There we go. Between 1965 and 2000. So that's what we want to do there. We don't want to change the meaning. We want the meaning to be the same, which is what we have here. But obviously, you know, the grammar and the vocab mistakes, it's important that we're not making significant mistakes. And again, as you can see, there are some words that we've copied from the question. So, you know, like electronic store, that came directly from the question. Appliances sold in an electronic store, that's actually quite a lot taken from the question. In Ghana, so this would actually be problematic in that we have so many words. Appliances sold in an electronic store in Ghana. That's quite a lot. But so let's say, let's try and change it an extra bit. Figures for sales of appliances. So that mixes up in an electronics shop. Those little changes help to improve our paraphrase. So, you know, you don't need to change it massively, but you don't want to have lots of words copied directly from the question. So try and change it a little bit. Okay, so let's get back. Let's see what other paraphrases we have since Hatun shared theirs. Manpreet, the line graph provides the information how many provides, so we'd remove the word, the article, and we need a preposition. So the line graph provides information about how many appliances were sold in an electronic store in Ghana, capital G, between 1965 and 2000. Okay, good. Risa, the graph below depicts the number of appliances sold in Ghana from 1999 to 2000. Now you have to get the year right. So your task achievement score won't be higher than band 6 because you said 1999, whereas the question is about 1965. So you need to be really careful that the information you provide is the same as the information in the chart. Nasir, sir, the problem with academic task 1 is you prepare well for one type of exam, then unexpectedly another type of exam question can come. So how to deal with the situation, sir? You have to prepare for all of them, Nasir. So if you've only prepared for graphs and you haven't prepared for maps and you haven't prepared for processes, then you're not ready for the test. You haven't prepared yourself for the test. You have to prepare yourself for all of them. I know that's probably not the answer you want. You're hoping for something a bit easier, but the reality is you have to be fully prepared. You have to be fully prepared for the test. Okay, so I can see there are a lot of paraphrases shared with me. I'm going to get to those in a minute, but just to keep the lesson moving, I'm going to move you on to the next part, and I want you to write the overview. So I'll continue giving you feedback on your paraphrases, but as I'm doing that, you can also write the overview for this question. Okay, so let's see who's next. Nambut. The line graph provides the details of electronic devices sold. Electronic devices would include more things than appliances. So appliances are the things that we would typically find in a kitchen, you know, like fridges, washing machines, dryers, that type of thing. So it'd be more like for the house, specifically for the house, whereas electronic devices would include, you know, phones, laptops, that type of thing. So they're not the same. Very, somewhat similar for sure, but not the same. Sold in Ghana between 65 and 2000. Yep, good. So just that one mistake. Nasir, example, you prepare well for charts, but in exam you get a process or type exam question. Yeah, definitely. I knew exactly what you meant, Nasir. Glorina, hi to you. The line graph depicts the number of appliances which were sold in an electrical shop in Ghana between 1965 and 2000. Fantastic. Very accurate. You've changed enough words. Good paraphrase. No grammar mistakes. No vocab mistakes. And the meaning is the exact same. So you can't do better than this. You can't do better than this when it comes to paraphrasing the question. You've done everything you can do very, very well. Good job. Mandeep, the line chart displays the number of appliances sold in electrical stores in Ghana between 1965 and 2000. So you've changed the meaning. In the question, it's showing one store, but what you've said is all the stores. So you've combined, what you've said doesn't have the same meaning as the original question. So that unfortunately isn't acceptable. Chris F. The given graph illustrates the amount of electronic appliances. Amount is used with uncountable nouns normally, so it would have to be the number of electronic appliances. I know we hear this used a lot in spoken English, and it's something that we would hear quite a lot, that using the word amount with a countable noun. But strictly speaking, that's incorrect, even though you would hear it in spoken English a lot. So the given graph illustrates the number of electronic appliances sold in a store, you need the article, in Ghana between 1985 and 2000. So the question says 1965. So again, if your information isn't the same as the question, you're going to get a low task achievement score, or you're going to get a band 6 or lower. Zulfiakson. The line graph shows detailed information about the number of household. Again, we'll have to say appliances, household devices, household appliances, household devices. No, it's not a collocation. I know what you're trying to do, and it's still clear, but the collocation isn't accurate. Sold in Ghana, in Ghana's store. No, so it's one store in Ghana from 65 to 2000. Good. Ravinder, hi, excellent tutor for the first place in the world to me. Thank you very much. Sir, you are correcting editing while taking students along for writing the relevant paragraph. It's good to note that. Okay, thank you, Nasir. Okay, so Nasir, you're very welcome. Manpreet, it can be clearly seen that the sales of appliances was highest for refrigerators, where sales of television was lowest throughout the period. So this would not be the most important information to include in my overview, but it's definitely something we could add as extra information. So that's the way I try to look at it, as what's the most important things to include. And you can always include something extra as long as it's not too specific. So I'm actually going to take that and I'm going to add it to the screen, but not yet. I'm going to leave it there. We can come back to that later. It's not the most important information, but we'll come back to it later. Okay. Okay, so we looked at that already. Osai, the line graph demonstrates. No, to demonstrate is more to show somebody. It has the same meaning as show in some contexts, but not in this context. So if I show you how to do something, so I'm trying to teach you how to drive a car. So what I do is, I sit in and I do the thing I want you to do. So you look at me doing it. That's to demonstrate how to do something. It's also how to show. So demonstrate and show would have the same meaning in that case, where I do it to show you how to do it. But in the graph, it's a different type of show. It doesn't have the same meaning. So we cannot use that. So the line graph shows the number of sales in an electronic shop, the amount of sales in an electronic shop in Ghana between the year 1965 and 2000. And we need to include that it's about the appliances. We're talking specifically about appliances. It said that in the question, so we want to say that in our paraphrase as well. Hayal, the line graph presents the figures for sales of appliances in an electronic shop in Ghana between 1965, not 1956. So again, that's going to hurt your task achievement score, because the information in your essay isn't the same as the information in the question. It's an easy mistake to make, but it really, really impacts your score. So you need to be very careful with that. Okay, Raisa, overall, the graph shows appliances sold from 1965 to 2000. No. So that's the information that we gave in the paraphrase of the question. So in the first sentence, when we paraphrase the question, we said what the graph is about. Now we need to say in general what's happening. So that's not the information we need for the overview. Can we use electronic devices to electrical gadgets? No, that's not really the same either. I think, home appliances, that they're specific things. So I would stick with that. I just copy what it says in the question in this case. The given graph presents how many appliances were sold in an electronic store in Ghana from 1965 to 2000. A little bit too much copied from the question. So from the word sold to the end, it's directly the exact same as the question. So we need to change it a bit more than that if possible. If changing it more than that means that it's going to be unclear, or it's going to be inaccurate, or the meaning won't be the same, then what you've done is better. But if possible, we would want to change it more than that. Nahida, the line graph illustrates the number of refrigerators, washing machines, telephones, and televisions which were sold in Ghana between. No, because yes, actually, you can. Yes, you can, if you want to do that. I wouldn't, when I'm paraphrasing the question, I wouldn't recommend going outside. So what you've done isn't wrong. First of all, what you've done is absolutely fine. But typically, when I'm paraphrasing the question, I would just look at this part of the question up here, and I wouldn't even look at the graph. So taking this information and using that as a synonym for appliances, you can do that, but you're creating more work for yourself. And because we have a limited amount of time, that would be my concern. So what you did isn't wrong, but I would still prefer if you just stuck with the word appliances, because the paraphrase is the least important sentence in our essay, so we don't want to dedicate too much time to it. That's my only concern. Okay, Eva, the line graph illustrates the number of 4 electrical appliances sold in Ghana, but it's not in Ghana, it's in one shop in Ghana over a 45-year period. So you need 45 hyphen year, no S, period. Overall, the sales increased over the years, except for telephones, which is kept steady. So we're kind of getting somewhere now. Okay, so let me take this one. We're getting places. So earlier on, I took this bit of text and I added it here because I wanted to come back to it later. The reason for that is in this type of graph, I want to focus on the increases and decreases because it's a dynamic chart. Look at each category, you know, between comparing the start and comparing the end. Were they increasing? Did each category increase or decrease? So that's what I'm more concerned. So like if you look at the blue line, started here, end here, this is higher than this. So I'm going to say that it increased. So that's what I want to do. I want to compare the start and the end of each category and say if it increased and decreased. And this bit that we have on the screen here already, it's not doing that. So we can use this bit here later as extra information in our overview. But the most important thing is whether it increased or decreased. So what we have here, overall, the sales increased over the years. So the sales of every appliance increased over the years, except for telephones, which is kept steady. It didn't really keep steady. Like, you know, if you say kept steady, it would just be kind of like a straight line the whole way across. And that's not quite right. But what you are mentioning is that, you know, the first bit and the last bit are about the same level. So I see what you're saying. And I agree with your decision to say it. Just the language you've used isn't accurate enough. So I'm going to say, except for telephones, which finished at roughly the same level. Okay. So now we've said all of the categories increased, except yellow was about the same at the start and the end. So that's perfect. And now I'm going to pull up this other stuff here. And I can add this as extra information. Now you need to decide yourself. Like if we look at that overview, if it was long enough already, I wouldn't add this extra stuff. But looking at it, it's, you know, it's not a very long overview. It's only, you know, what, maybe about 15 words or so. So it's okay to add a little bit extra because my overview is a bit short. So let's do this. It can also be seen that the sales of appliances, the sales of refrigerators was always highest, whereas the sales of televisions was lowest throughout the period. Lovely. That's a really strong overview. So we've given the most important information, which ones increased, which ones decreased, which ones stayed the same. And we've added some extra information about highest and lowest after that. Okay, so I'm happy with that as an overview. I'm happy with that. That looks good to me. So the next thing is to consider how will we organize the details paragraphs. So we've got 4 categories. Which 2 would you put in body paragraph 1, and which 2 would you put in body paragraph? Which would you put in body paragraph 1, and which would you put in body paragraph 2? So let me know in the comments, and once we've decided on that, we will move on and we will write some of the body paragraphs. Marvelous. The line graph displays data on the sales of gadgets in an electronics store in Ghana from 1965 to 2000. Yep, very good, marvelous. Okay, Nambut. General refrigerator were buy more over the years than, and television was less, while washing machines and telephones were sold moderately. So we've already talked about how we want to describe the increases and decreases predominantly. The next thing, though, is your overview should always start with the phrase overall. So as we see in our the essay on our screen here. Overall, so we're going to start with that. And also, you've got quite a few grammar mistakes. So overall, refrigerators were bought more over the years, and televisions were sold the least, like that. So you've got some grammar mistakes as well. Hi, Domenico. Good to see you here. New profile picture. Okay, Chris. Overall, after analyzing the given data, there's no need to say that, you're not really telling a story about yourself. So, talking about how you've analyzed the data isn't necessary. You just want to say what the graph shows. So focus more on the graph and less about yourself. That's also why earlier on in this sentence, it said it can also be clearly seen. And I think that's too subjective as well. It's like, maybe it's clear for you, maybe it won't be clear for somebody else. So we're trying to be as objective as possible in these questions. So focus more on the graph. Okay, so overall, it can be seen that refrigerator, television, and washing machine sales dramatically soared. Now, did they all dramatically soar? Yeah. No, I don't know. I think I wouldn't say that they all soared. I'd say that let's say they all increased significantly, because we need to be accurate with our language as well. So let's say they all increased significantly while telephone sales remained at the same level. So let's say while by the end of the period, telephone sales were at roughly the same level, because they're not at exactly the same level. Roughly, it's a little bit higher at the end. So yeah, a lot of things done very well there, but just make sure that everything you say is as accurate as possible. That's a very important part. Hamidi, the line graph gives information about sales figures of appliances in an electronic shop in Ghana between 65 and 2000. Okay, so small few mistakes there, but overall done well. San, sir, your way of teaching is too good. Keep all students on board and involving the same time analysis of their ability, make you different from other instructors. Stay happy. And thanks a million, Hassan. Thank you so much. Nice to hear that. Okay, Nasir, the given graph presents how many electronic appliances were sold in a Ghanaian store from 1965 to 2000. Yep, nicely done. Just gadgets and appliances are slightly different. So just that one thing. Sir, is there a specific word for line graph describing? If yes, then what is it? I always just go with illustrate. So like when the question says that the graph below shows, I'll always say the chart illustrates. So I'll change it on the screen here, but I think it's the easiest thing. The question says the graph, I'll say the chart. The question says shows, I'll say illustrates. And I just keep it at that for every question. And if it was the other way around, the question said the chart shows, the chart illustrates, I'll say the graph shows. So you don't need to know more than that. That's what I usually do. Okay, another overview. Mandeep, overall, it can be seen that the sale of refrigerators, washing machines, and televisions increased. Good. You need a space after the comma. So increased, comma, space, while the sales of televisions remain the same throughout the entire period. So you've given the wrong category name. You meant to say telephones. So again, that's going to cause confusion. You've mentioned televisions twice. Again, it's a very, very common mistake in the IELTS test where candidates, you're trying to think of so many things at the same time. You make these little slips, but just be aware that, you can double check everything before you write it. So always double checking. Don't presume you're right. Look at the name, look at the color, look at the key. Always double check your information. And the same goes for the data. It's very easy to make these mistakes, but the impact on your score is quite big. So just be careful with there. Domenico, I'm getting ready for the trip to Dublin for the IELTS exam on 23rd of September. Okay, hope that goes well for you, Domenico. Sir, I have a lot of confusion, like I don't get words, what to do in that aspect. You have to improve your vocabulary. If you can't understand the word, it's because you haven't learned it yet. So it's just, constantly work on your vocab, and slowly but surely you'll make that those improvements. Okay, I'm going to come back. I have some comments here from Naida, Glorina, Sere, but just because we're halfway through the lesson and we haven't done anything on the body paragraphs, I'll come back to those comments in a minute. So at the moment, we're finished the first paragraph of our essay. So we have our paraphrase and our overview. And what we want to do is we want to write body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. So the question that I asked you guys there a minute ago, none of you have answered it yet. So I'm just going to answer it myself to kind of keep the lesson going and let us move on to the next stage. So the question I have here, and you can see on the screen, says, how will we organize the details paragraphs? One thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to separate the time. So like we see this from time to time where, like a candidate will maybe take the first 4 years and make that body paragraph 1, and then the next 4 and make that body paragraph 2. But cutting the graph down the middle like that, it doesn't give you a good sense of what's happening to each category. So in general, when we're looking at 2 time periods, when we're looking at a period of time, cutting that in 2 generally is not a good idea. It just makes it harder for the reader to follow, because you've told them about this, and then you stop talking about blue and you go and you talk about the others, and then after another about 60 or 80 words, you come back and you describe the rest of it. But the reader will have forgotten what you said here when you're talking about this bit here. So it's better in general to talk about each category from start to end. So what that means is we're going to take the 4 categories and we're going to decide which 2 will we discuss in the body paragraph 1 and which 2 will we discuss in body paragraph 2. Now, if we had 2 increased and then 2 decreased, that would be obvious. We put the 2 increases together, we put the 2 decreases together. In this case, we have 4 increases. They all increased. Now, we said that yellow finished at about the same level, which is true. But at the same time, that's just one category. I don't want to have, I don't want to discuss 3 categories here and 1 category here. I want to have my paragraphs, kind of balanced. So I want to have 2 and 2. I want to have 2 here and I want to have 2 here. So how are we going to do that? I can't really see any really clear way of organizing them myself. I don't see anything really obvious. We have a comment here from Eva. Hi, Eva. I will put the blue line and the red line in one paragraph and group the yellow and the green line in another paragraph. So I presume your reason for that is the blue and red finish in first and second, and highest and second highest, and then the other 2 finish lower. That makes sense. We can do that. So I have no better idea. What I was actually going to suggest was going with blue and yellow because they start as the highest and second highest. But we can go like that. That's your suggestion is just as good. So let's do that. Okay, so we're going to go refrigerators and washing machines. This is going to be our paragraph 1. Telephones and televisions. That's going to be paragraph 2. Okay. So with that in mind, I'm going to say write the first body paragraph, write the first details paragraph. But you know what? Let's make that. Give me 1 second here. Here's your instruction. I'm going to make a new banner here now. Write a description of the blue line. So we're going to put the blue line and the red line in the same paragraph, but I just want you to write your description of the blue line first, and don't worry about the red line for now. So that's what I want you to do next for me. Write your description of the blue line, share it with me in the comments, and again, I'll give you feedback. I'll show you what mistakes you're making, and just make sure that you understand what your problems are. Okay, so where are we now? Okay, so Nahida, overall, refrigerators always followed an upward trend, whereas televisions were in a constant method of sales throughout the year. Nahida, the language you're using doesn't really clearly communicate what you want to say. Refrigerators always followed an upward trend. So what you're saying is refrigerators were always increasing, but there are points where refrigerators were decreasing. So we have this bit here and this bit here. So your description actually isn't accurate. Unfortunately, what you've said isn't correct. And then the second thing, you said televisions were in a constant method of sales. That actually doesn't communicate anything. That vocabulary choice is incorrect. So I'm not sure what you're trying to say with that. So the vocabulary is preventing you from communicating in this particular sentence. Chlorina, overall, so remember you need a space after the comma, you need a space after the full stop. Overall, the sales of all the electronic appliances had an increasing trend, with the exception of telephones, comma, space, which had a relatively stable trend. Interestingly, okay, so you ran out of letters there. Okay, so what you're saying, just those mistakes that I pointed out, but yeah, so the most important information is there, so that's good. Hi, Sarah. The line graph illustrates how many appliances were sold in an electronic store in Ghana over a period of 35 years. So good. I've correct when I was reading out your answer, I made the corrections to the grammar. So just pay attention to those corrections and those grammar points. Okay. Overall, it is clear that there was a dramatic increase in the number of refrigerator sales, comma, while the figure for telephones experienced a slight rise over the given period. We need all of them. So you've given me refrigerators and telephones. We don't have anything about washing machines or televisions. So that isn't enough in your overview. You've only given me half of what I need. So when you're giving an overview, make sure you include all the categories. Sir, please, when do you use the phrase by contrast in a body paragraph? So if you're talking about basically when there's a contrast means like, one was increased and one decreased. So if you're talking about, the blue line increased, in contrast, a different line decreased. Or you might say, if something was increasing for the first half and decreasing for the second half, you'd say, from here to here, it increased, in contrast, from here to here, it decreased. So you could do it like that as well. Alan, overall, the appliances obtained an increase in sales over the years, except for telephones, which remained at the same level. So what I would say, except for telephones, which finished at the same level. So it's not that it remained at the same level. That means, a straight line from start to end, which isn't what happened. It's that, by the end here and here, the start and the end are about the same. So if you say which finished at the same level, it will make your answer more accurate. Or just Julia. Very good. That's a little bit easier for me. I know I'm not saying your name right. Raisa, do we require accuracy while marking graphs numbers? Oh yeah, incredibly important. If your numbers aren't accurate, your task achievement score will go down. Okay, so we looked at that already. Nasir, body paragraphs will be broken into pieces from overview to give some exact details. Exactly, that's exactly what the body paragraphs are. Yep. Blue and red, yellow and green. So you had the same idea as Eva. Yeah, good. two highest and two lowest. So with that, that's the idea we had as well, Nan, but just that the highest at the start, the two highest at the start and the two highest at the end aren't the same. So either way, whichever way you decide is fine, but just be aware that that's true. Domenico, the line graph illustrates the figure for sales of appliances in an electric shop in Ghana over a 35-year period. Yep, good. Yep, good. And while we do, that, we will compare data. So that's related to. Yeah, but don't go overboard on the data. It says, make comparisons where relevant. So just saying something like, the blue line was always highest, or the blue line started as the highest. Don't go overboard with your attempts to compare the data. Okay, so Domenico, overall, the sales of every appliance increased over the years, except for telephones, which remained at roughly the same level. So again, change remained for finished, and that will make it more accurate. Refrigerator sales started with 700 in 1965. Let me just have a quick look at the graph here. Yep, I'm always a little bit hesitant to just say exactly 700, because what, like, could that potentially be 701? When we're representing, there's 800, there's 700. When we're representing 100 units in such a small space, I would be concerned that 700 isn't 100% accurate. It might be ever so slightly higher. So I would encourage you to say refrigerator sales started with about 700 in 1965. And also make sure that you don't put a space before the full stop. So 1965 full stop, not 1965 space full stop. There should be no space there. In regard to refrigerators, they are the most sold electronics throughout the period and showed a substantial increase from 1965 to 2000. So instead of using brackets, I would go to 2000, comma, starting at about 700 and increasing to just below 1000. But there's a lot more going on there. We need to choose the important data. Now, what you've done is you've included this bit at the very start, and you've included this bit at the very end. So the impression that the reader gets is that, if you just give them these 2 points, they'll connect those 2 points, and that's what they'll see. That's what they'll imagine. But there's a bit more going on than that. Like, it went up to here, and then it went down, went up again, went down, went up again, and then kind of leveled off. The thing is, you're right that we shouldn't include every year. So, like, I wouldn't recommend including all this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I wouldn't recommend including all of them. But still, there's quite a bit going on compared to what you've included. So more. We need more. Not too many, but at the same time, more than the very start and the very end. If it was a straight line, if what we had was just one line going straight up from start to finish, I would agree about just including the start and the end. But in the case of the blue line we have here, there's a bit more going on. So I'd like to see a bit more in the description than just the figure 700 at the start and the figure 1000 at the end. Okay. In 1954, the sales of refrigerators began at, so you've already said sales, we don't need to say it again. So began at about 700 and maintained a steady upward trend throughout the period until 2000. It's not a steady upward trend because steady means a straight line. And it wasn't straight. and it didn't have an upward trend throughout the period because there was 2 drops. It decreased twice. So both of those words, steady and throughout, are incorrect. They're inaccurate. Until 2000, and then it would be comma, when, not where. So 2000 is a time, not a place. So comma, when it reached its highest sales of a little under 1,000. So again, I would want more data and remove any of the language that makes your description inaccurate. So those 2 things are what you need to be careful of there, Eva. Sir, do you have any book on website which has writing task 1 and writing task 2 explained with vocabulary? I have a website with explanations. I don't have any books. So I have a website you can use. I don't know what you mean by with vocabulary. I have descriptions of, I have strategies for improving vocab. For task 1, I have pages describing the type of vocab you need for graphs. So you'll find that stuff on my website. Just search for complete test success. You'll find my website online. Moreover, moreover means more importantly, so that's not the right cohesive device to use here, Domenico. It can also be seen that the figures for the sales of refrigerators were always significantly the highest, whereas the sales of televisions were consistently the lowest throughout the period. So good. I like this sentence. Just change the cohesive device moreover, because whatever, if we've described the increases and decreases. So for those of you, Domenico is writing, still writing the overview. After we've described the increases and decreases, this stuff isn't more important than the increases and decreases. So I just say furthermore instead of moreover. At the beginning of the year, refrigerators started at 700 and kept fluctuating as the years went by. But from 1990, the sales kept increasing. I would go with continued increasing. It's more formal. And in the final year, 2000, sales were about 1,000. 10,000. That should be 10,000. No, that's 1,000. Should be 1,000. Okay. So just a few grammar and vocab mistakes, but the same point I made, that I'd like to have more data included in the description. That's here. Not going overboard. Okay, you're very welcome. Alan, in detail, the initial sales for refrigerators was around 700 in the year 1965. And a slight fluctuation of increasing and decreasing. So a fluctuation means increasing and decreasing, so you don't need to say that. So, and a slight fluctuation, and then we don't have the end of your writing. Let's see. I can see you've written the word from later on, but that doesn't finish it. Okay, so I've mentioned the mistakes already. But when you say, slight fluctuations of increasing and decreasing, what I worry is that you're going to jump straight to the end again. So my concern again is that there isn't going to be enough data in this. Okay. Eva, in 1964, the sales of refrigerators began at a sale. Have we looked at this already? We did. We saw this already. Okay. Vasanthi, sales of refrigerators stood high over the 35 years, and we don't need to say of time, over the 35 years, with approximately 700 units in 1965 and reaching nearly 1,000 units in 2000. So again, we're seeing the same problem in most of your writing. What's happening is you're giving quite brief descriptions, and sometimes you will give a brief description, but remember, our essay needs to be about 180 words long, and if we put this much detail for each category, our essay won't be long enough. It's not descriptive enough. We're not going to have enough opportunity to show our range of grammar, our range of vocab. our task achievement score won't be high because we haven't gone into enough detail. So too much detail is a problem, not enough detail is a problem. You need to find a balance. And it generally, it depends on the shape of the line, really, for a line graph. You know, if it's completely straight, first point, last point is fine. But that's not what we're looking at here with the green one. Sorry, with the blue line. So I would like more detail. I would like more detail than all of you are making the same mistake. So I would like more detail. Mandeep, the sales of refrigerators started at 700 and they increased gradually and then sharply just below 900 at the end of the period. So under 900 is not correct. So be careful with the accuracy of the information as well, Mandeep. And then Mandeep, I see here you said, sorry, I didn't write 1965. That's no problem because you said it started. You said the sales of refrigerators started at 700. So I'm okay with that. By saying started, that implies 1965. So that I'm okay with that information there. The way you've written it, it's the bigger problem is below 900 is incorrect at the end of the period. And then, as I said before, we want more data. We want more data than that. In 1965, so Sire, in 1965, the number of refrigerators sold was about 700 and it saw fluctuations during the rest of the time period. No space before full stop. Moreover, refrigerators figures increased slightly to nearly 950 in 2000. And then you need another full stop. So, okay, like language-wise and vocab-wise, some small mistakes, nothing too concerning. But again, we want more data. Domenico, you're very welcome. Hatun, overall, it is clear that there is a great increase in refrigerators, nearly 1,000 in 2000, while significantly downward, about 700 in 1965. We don't put specific information in the overview. If you put specific data, like, you know, nearly 1,000 in the year 2000, that means it's not an overview because you're including specific information, and that will automatically bring your score down to a band 5 for task achievement. So be really careful with that. Okay, Hatun, refrigerator sales started with 700 in 1965, and it grew about 30. It grew by about 30 by the next year, and then fluctuated between around 730 and 800 between 1970 and 1990. By the end of 1990, the sales jumped significantly to around 980 in 1995, and it soared gradually to about 1,000 by the end of the period. So soar does not mean, it's the opposite of gradual. Soar is very big, whereas gradual is quite small. But I like what you're doing in that you've included more points and you've included more information. So let me grab this here. I'll add it to the screen, and we'll be finishing up after this because we're running out of time. Okay, where am I? Okay. So I just need to make sure that all of the information is right. So refrigerator sales started with about 700 in 1965, and it grew by about 30. Now, so by the next year, so if you're telling me 1965 and you say by the next year, I'm thinking 1966. I'm not thinking 1970, which is what the graph is showing. So I'm just going to put in by 1970. Okay, we don't start a, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys, just so we can see what we're looking at more clearly. Okay, we don't start a sentence with and. So let's just make that then it fluctuated between around 730 and 800. And now we've just said between and. So between and again doesn't really sound great because, you know, we're between around that and that, between around that and that. So to make that sound a little easier to read, I'm going to say from to. But I need to make sure that that information is correct. So let's have a look here. So from 1970 to 1990, it was between 730 and 800. So here it goes down to about 680. And 1990 it goes up to about 800 and let's say 20. So we're going to change those figures. The figures you've given me aren't accurate. I like what you're doing in that you're given a range, you're trying to give me more information, but it has to be accurate. So let's go from around 680. So let's say from 1975 and 820 to 1990. Okay, I like it. Okay, good. Okay. By the end of 1990, the sales jumped significantly to around 980 in 1995, but it's not, by the end of 1990 isn't in 1985. So we'll just say after this, the sales jumped significantly to around 980 in 1995. Good. And we said before, we don't start a sentence with and it rose gradually to about 1,000 by the end of the period. Lovely. So there's our description. There's our description of the blue line. I like this. This is good. Okay. So from there, we would obviously need to describe the red line, the yellow line, and the green line. We're not going to have time to do that today, but you still have an idea of what we're doing. So we've described the blue one, do the next one, new paragraph, do the other two, and that's our essay finished. Okay, so I have another few comments. We'll just have a quick look and we'll finish there. The same trend, so we won't look at the washing machines right now, Stephen. The sales of refrigerators started at 700 in 1965, and then, comma, after some fluctuations, comma, they increased to just below 900 at the end of the period. Oh, so we looked at that already. Okay. So that's pretty much us done for today. Some good work. The most important thing to take away from this, you know, whether you shared like something that was very good or something that was very bad, doesn't really matter. What you need to focus on is what mistakes did I point out? What mistakes did you make? And based on those mistakes, that will allow you to improve your scores. So that's what I want you to focus on, not was your performance good or bad today. What I want you to focus on was what mistakes did you make and how can you avoid repeating those mistakes? That's how your scores will improve. If you guys are looking for one-on-one support, there's my email address, lar@completetestsuccess.com. Send me an email and I can show you the various courses and packages that I have available. But that's it for now. Take care all. If you have tests coming up in the near future, best of luck with those. If you're joining me tomorrow for my live feedback lesson on Zoom, see you there. And I'll have another live stream next week, so I'll talk to you then as well. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.